Hi, I'm Paul.
And I'm Tiffany.
To some, we could be called career wizards.
And to others, sometimes we seem like therapists. However, we definitely are not.
But for you, we are the co hosts of the Career Boosters podcast.
I remember the leadership course, there was a lot of introspection, and I looked at my introspections and I realized, oh my God, I have so much wisdom to bring to the table when I was fairly young at the time. So I think life experience really, really helps.
Hello and welcome to the Career Boosters podcast, season 2, episode 26. We had the lucky opportunity on Monday of this week to have what I would call a culmination of all things that we've been working with MBA students with since kind of August of last year. We brought together 20 alumni and our students into a room for a celebratory networking event. It's always and is and was very exciting in the last 3 years to kind of do this and watch great people talk and build professional relationships with other great people. And one of those fantastic alumna is going to join us today, Marina Barbu. So, Marina, thank you so much for joining us. We thought it would be fun as we see one of our guests at the networking event. We wanted to have one of them join us on the podcast. And Marina graciously said yes. So, we're going to talk a little bit about her journey. We're going to talk about kind of building relationships, professional relationships, what those mean to her, what was the event like for her, and kind of just see, networking doesn't need to be this stuffy 1,000 person event at a convention center with everybody wearing suits. Networking can look and feel differently. So, Marina, once again, thank you so much for joining us. And the first question we have is, how has the MBA impacted your career journey?
Thank you, Paul and Tiffany. It's an honor to be here and to contribute to the student journey, because being myself an MBA student back in the day, it was a bit frightening at times. So MBA helped me a lot, to be honest. I went into it in the beginning. I decided to go into international business. I was in the hospitality back in the day, as my first career. And I was really passionate, still passionate about that industry. But then down the way, I decided to do a career pivot. And I think I'm convinced MBA played a crucial role into facilitating that career pivot and preparing me, providing me all the skills needed to actually do the pivot successfully and with less stress and less panic, I would call it. Additionally, it was very exciting to connect with a lot of people. This year, I went to an event in the business community of Edmonton, and I realized that I knew so many people there outside of my industry. And I came home so pumped, saying, oh my God, this is the value of the MBA. Going into a room that, you don't know who you're going to meet, and so many people from hospitality industry, which, some of them I connected later on, from non-for-profit, from a variety of industries, which I'm so grateful for.
You just mentioned two things that come up time and time again for us with MBA students. And the first one is a pivot. And so Paul and I working with full-time students, I would hesitate to make a guess. I don't know if data backs this up, but like 90% of full-time students or more come in wanting to go somewhere in a different direction, just like you said, a pivot, and use the MBA as that pivot point. But then you just also mentioned stress around a pivot. And oh my goodness, isn't that a shared common experience? And then the value of a network. And interestingly enough, you and I didn't know each other before Monday. And so when I was kind of doing a little bit of background for this podcast, I also checked out your LinkedIn and realized you and I are connected with a whole bunch of similar people in the hospitality industry, and just what an interesting world we live in, and how powerful understanding how to build connection is. And the tool, like you said, the MBA is. I'm curious if we can reverse this a little bit. Your hospitality background and the skills that you developed there, how did that support you then in your MBA journey, would you say?
Yes, absolutely. So I think the interpersonal skills, because you connect, you talk to people every day, you solve problems, you solve conflicts, you're very quick in your thinking, making decisions. So I think that really helped me with the ability to connect with my professors, connect with my students, and being comfortable in that environment of being surrounded by people and talking in front of people as well. Also, I think hospitality industry, it's not an easy industry. You see a lot of things. I was a middle management in my career, being in hotels, bigger hotels, managing teams. So you get a lot of life experience. And I remember the leadership course, there was a lot of introspection. And I looked at my introspections and I realized, oh my God, I have so much wisdom to bring to the table when I was fairly young at the time. So I think life experience really, really helps to, again, because in my MBA journey, I realized that knowing yourself was the biggest value for me. And then being able to actually look back and realize what your values are and all that. So hospitality industry really helped me to actually live life, I guess, if you can call it that way.
Yeah. What a great, there's so many points that I want to just point out for you. You had at a very young age this career in hospitality. You're working on the interpersonal skills. Tiffany and I talk to employers almost daily for MBA students, and the things they're looking for are the interpersonal skills. They can teach you all of the technical stuff. They can teach you Excel. They can teach you Python, tablet, whatever, but they can't or have a tough time dealing with or teaching is the soft side of things. And I think that those people skills are so important. And I love how you saw value in your experience and brought that to the MBA. What kind of pivot strategies did you find best supported a career move from hospitality into now working in innovation and pharmaceuticals?
Yes, it was a big pivot.
Mhm.
I'm looking back now and I can't believe I'm in this space right now. So I think it was a combination of different things. COVID was a big, big catalyzer for that because hotel industry was really impacted, and I was one of the people that got laid off. It was paired up with some personal crises, and everything put me in front of that existential crisis where I had to look back at my career. How did I make decisions? What I want to do back? What I want to do next in my career? And I think a lot of the students should really sit with that question. What do you want to get out of your career? What do you want? How do you want your career to look like? So, again, MBA helped me to actually do that introspection. I worked with a career coach, Corey Foget. I can't say enough good things about her. She really helped me to actually not be that overwhelmed, because being a generalist, you go through the list of skills that you have and you feel like you know nothing. And then at the same time, you feel overwhelmed that, okay, I can go to to so many other career options right now. I can go in consulting, I can go in banking, I can go. So you don't know which path to take. So I looked at my values, to be honest, and looked at my decision making throughout the years, and I realized that impact was the common denominator through my decisions, paired with adventure as well. And I graduated in 2021. Market was terrible, so my strategy was to be involved in things, because I realized that if you sit and wait, you go into this, I call it desperation energy, where you sit at home and you wait. But if you're involved and your mind is busy and you're active in the community, then you actually don't think about, the job coming to you. So I volunteered at U of A, I remember that time. And I also got involved into the consulting project with the MBA Left program at that time. And I worked with a health tech startup, and I really, really enjoyed it. And then I realized that this would be a good space for me to explore the innovation space. And then an opportunity came at the U of A at the Health Innovation Hub. And as a program coordinator, I applied and I got in. So there was a bit of luck, but then I think it's a bit of also putting yourself out there and having a positive mindset. It's really, really important, because I really don't like when people say, oh, the market is bad, you can't find jobs, this and that. And I feel like this is a blockage in your thinking, and you block opportunities to come your way. You should always say there are opportunities for me. Yeah, maybe right now it's a bit more difficult to actually find them and successfully secure them, but there are always opportunities.
And I appreciate the openness to possibility. You just basically really said what Paul and I say kind of every day in different ways to students over and over again. But you started with the sentence of, I actually kind of can't believe that I'm here where
Mhm.
you are now. But what I heard as you walked through your response was along the way, you were open to the possibility that you would get
Mhm.
somewhere. I would imagine you didn't know you'd get where you are now, but the
Yeah.
openness to know that there are options clearly allowed you along the way to just trust what the next right step was. And what a
And
beautiful demonstration. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and to be honest, Tiffany, really COVID changed me completely as a person. Right now, I look at my career as I am right now with applied pharmaceutical innovation. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. I'm learning a lot. I'm surrounded by very intelligent people. This fulfills me now. It will come a day probably where I'll be like, okay, I think I've got what I could out of this position. What is next? And I'll have full confidence and trust in a higher power or universe or whatever is there, that next opportunity will come to me when I'm ready for it. And I don't stress about it because I find that back in the day, I was way too controlling and on holding very tight on the ropes of this is how my career should look like. And there's no other way. And you really close yourself to other opportunities.
I definitely couldn't have said that better myself, for sure. And I appreciate the lived experience. You are proof that the mindset that Paul and I talk about day in and day out truly, in fact, works. And it works
Mhm.
in weird and mysterious ways that you could never imagine, but that you just need
Yes,
to be open to it. So you've
100%.
talked about the pivot. You came in from hospitality and we've kind of wung over to pharmaceuticals and innovation. Tell me how those connect for you. How is your background now supporting where you are now? What's that transferable thread that you see of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, impact is a big one because hotel industry allowed me to create these special moments for people, allowed me to grow my staff members, to develop them as future leaders. There's a lot of impact in that area. Now it's like impact on steroids, I call it, because you get to work with these amazing entrepreneurs that really literally want to change the world, and you're part of that puzzle. I'm really, really passionate about that. Um, Also, other connection, I would think it's a similar environment when it comes to, because it's a startup environment, so it's very chaotic at times. Hotels can be like that too. You have to think on your feet. You have to think very quickly. A lot of changes all the time, and you have to take a deep breath at times and saying, "Okay, I'm okay with change." So that is very similar. And yeah, and then again, people. I
People.
feel like people are everywhere, no
I
matter where
know.
you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm
Cool.
very appreciative of podcasts like yours or other opportunities where people talk about that you
Yeah.
need interpersonal skills, you need people skills, no matter where you go.
Yeah. Thriving in chaos sometimes takes like mindsets that are really beneficial and appreciate and but then you thrive in chaos with partnerships and with people around you. I think
Mhm.
we have a really hard time thriving in chaos all by ourselves, right? And I think that's what a wonderful segment that you kind of talk about these connection points of all helping from our past. And I think that's
Mhm.
really cool. The one thing I want to just from your answer previous, you talked a lot about like going out and doing things, going in and trying things. We have a lot of students who I would consider like that are computer warriors. They are trying to put out
Mhm.
as many applications as possible. They are trying to do all of the things that don't necessarily work in the world of finding a
Yeah.
job anymore. And so it is going out and finding, opportunities, finding places to contribute some of your skills and abilities. And that leads me to my next question. So networking. How did networking during your MBA program contribute to you landing your position at API?
Sure. So I started as a part-time student when I was working in the hotels, and there's not a lot of room for networking, to be honest, because the work was a bit challenging. The studies were a bit challenging. However, once COVID hit, I went into the full-time studies, and that opened up more free time for me to go and network. Very, very important, to be honest. And I advise any students that are on the journey right now, please prioritize networking, because employers not necessarily look at the grades at the end of the day. They look at, many of them look at the network that you have, connections that you have. So it helped me, even with professors, to be honest. For example, when I applied to that health innovation incubator, I had my Professor Tony Briggs in the interview, and we already had a very good relationship built up. And my previous manager, Parmita, she was my colleague at MBA. And again, we already knew about each other. Very, very important to go and connect. It helped me a lot, to be honest.
If you
And
think
even
about,
even after you graduate, like right now, I'm very active with alumni and very active with the current students, because you never know where the person will be next and how you can work together at some point.
I love that you never know. We often hear from students, they need to understand the connection. Who do I exactly need to talk to because I think they could get me the job I want? And we never get to know. We don't get to know how our connections are going to support us. And that's like the opposite mentality that we need. But it sounds to me like connection and relationship building is truly part of your DNA. It's shifted and changed perhaps throughout your life, but it's not just I only did it in the MBA because I thought it was important in the MBA. It's clearly part of who you are. But I'm curious to hear how the skill set perhaps of networking has changed for you. Have you seen yourself change?
Absolutely. Yeah, you become more comfortable and confident, to be honest. In the beginning, it's this, sorry, is this overwhelming activity where you go and you have to impress people. Now it's more led by curiosity. I'm curious about you. Who are you? Because we're all humans at the end of the day. Yeah, people can have this fancy titles and can do a lot of things in their lives, but we're humans. We connect through emotions, we connect through experiences, we connect through stories. So I look at that this way. And even in the business world, you do business with people, you don't do business with titles. And so driven by curiosity, very comfortable with it at this time. And even, I if it doesn't work at times, it doesn't work, you just move on to the next person.
Yeah.
So I would say it evolved. I bring myself fully these days. I don't just show one side of me. I just show the full Marina.
Yeah. And I think that's what the world deserves is our true
So
authentic selves just showing up, right? I hope this doesn't sound weird, but like as alum, we're coming into our networking event. I tend to kind of just see how they like maneuver through the rooms and things like that. We had food. I loved how you just picked up food and you sat down at a table where there was like five students and you just started chatting with them. It was so authentically like I'm just going to sit here and chat with people and be curious
yes.
to them. And what's so interesting is I see you sitting I saw you sitting at the table with two doctors. I'm like, this is going to be a cool conversation. And then there was a guy in pharmacy doing his pharma and MBA, and like
Yeah.
it's so unique, and you just never know who you're gonna meet, right? Which I think is so cool.
I
Um,
think
s- yeah, go ahead,
if
go
I
ahead.
can add one more
Yeah,
point, I
yeah, for
think
sure.
when I joined the innovation space, the health and pharmaceuticals and all that, I had a bit of imposter syndrome because you
Mhm.
connect with people that have PhDs, MBA. I always felt cool that I have an MBA. And then once
Yeah,
you go and meet people that have PhD, MBAs, MD, and so on,
yeah,
it's like, oh my, what am I doing here?
yeah,
But then again, I'm going back, they're humans. You just
yeah,
connect as humans. And I think that brought a lot of confidence that I managed to
yeah,
actually succeed in this environment and be
yeah.
confident about it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm going to try and speak on behalf of Tiffany and myself, but I think there's like a stigma with people with really high levels of education that they're almost like you can't talk to them. And
Yes.
Tiffany and I are sitting here like I have over 30 years of experience. Tiffany has so many years of experience. That's something too, right? And so it
Yeah.
is you can contribute to conversations. You can engage with people through very curious mindset and things like that. And it's if we can take away the stigma of like these people are more important than us and we are
Mhm.
all just people, what a beautiful experience that is, right? So
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think that's so powerful. So man, I feel like we could talk for a long, long time, but I'm going to ask you kind of our final question of questions, and then I'll pass it over to Tiffany for the lightning round. But as an alum of our program who recently connected with current students at our event. What was the most important advice that you shared with them?
When you mentioned about the table, I sat there like 5 men, and I said, I'm going to sit with you. So first thing I said, what you alluded earlier to, is how do you stand out just by applying through using your resume? I don't know, to be honest. Like I started reflecting on that. What's the return on investment of all the time that you put in to actually send those resumes? And second question, how do you capture your personality in that 2 pages of resumes? You can't. I don't know, unless we progress into video CVs at some point. So that's why it's very, very important to actually go and talk to people and do research about the company and align it with your values. And then when you talk to manager, you actually give them a reason to hire you because, hey, I believe in your idea. That's why I'm at API here. I believe in the idea. I'm passionate about it. I want the company to succeed. You cannot not make an impression if you put your passion on the table. So I would highly recommend to, again, be more thorough in the why you're applying, what the company is all about, and what are you bringing to the table as well.
I link that to something you've said in the middle, which has really stood out for me this whole entire way. And when you talked about just sitting with it, you talked about it in that moment of sitting with reflection of, oh my goodness, what's next? Like to just sit in that. We want quick answers these days. We want to know the exact end point. And you just talked about, if you don't sit with it, if you don't understand yourself and all of those pieces, that you can't actually put that out there in the world. And so
Exactly.
I love that you've kind of given even a step-by-step bit on how to truly be a successful at total pivots. You are a beautiful demonstration that pivots, big pivots, are possible. Thank you for
100%.
that. Are you ready for a lightning round?
Sure, yes.
All right. Let's do it. 3 quick questions, 3 gut answers. All right. What within your career has given you the biggest boost?
Pandemic, as sad as it sounds.
Yeah, I think it did a lot of things for people, but it boosted too. That's really cool.
It's a silver lining, to be honest, for my life at least.
What do you wish you'd learned sooner?
Manage your emotions and challenge your thoughts.
Service is so important to Paul and I, so we're always curious to hear how service is going to show up for you in the coming week.
I'm actually volunteering as a driver. I drive seniors to different locations, and I'm also a board member with the organization. It's called Drive Happiness. So I will be heavily involved this week and next week as well with that.
Fabulous. All right, Paul. Paul's random question.
I think that was the most efficient lightning round that we've had in the longest time. So great job, Marina. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, as I have been thinking about what this random question could be like, I think one of the ways that we network that we didn't really get a chance to speak too much about is through the world of social media, through our online presence. I've really enjoyed following along on your just kind of life journey and things like that on a variety of tools, Instagram being one. What's kind of the way that you look at social media when it comes to how you're kind of presenting your brand and what you're trying to put out there?
Oh, it's a tool, right? So it's up to you how you're going to use this tool. You can use it as a distraction. You can use it as a positive. You can use it as a negative. I try to use it as a way of communicating. And again, showing my authentic self and showing different layers of myself, because LinkedIn, I take it as a, more professional, more business side of things. And however, I've seen a bit of intersection these days with personal as well, but I try to compartmentalize to separate them this way. Instagram is more of a creative tool for me, where I, write my poetry, I share about my adventures, I share about my life reflections, because I believe in sharing about your struggles. Again, this can be used against you, but I believe in that. If we share what you're going through, then you're going to support so many more people that go through the same thing and they feel alone. So I take my, again, brands and platforms very seriously, because I want to inspire, I want to impact, I want to help others. Because, at the end of your life, you want to look back and say, okay, what difference did I make in this world?
And what a difference I think you've already made in this world, and certainly in the world of MBA and MBA students. And it's a ripple that I see you continuing to make, which I know Paul and I are just so grateful for. I wrote down 3 words as we were kind of chatting, and they're part of at least the brand that I'm perceiving from you, not knowing you very well until this podcast. And you've said impact a lot. It is clear that you want to make an impact. You've said adventure and curiosity. And that to me seems powerful, to be someone who really knows that impact, adventure, and curiosity is what sets them apart and what drives them. And it is what makes you someone that I'd like to get to know, that just puts out energy in the world that just seems so impactful and adventurous and curious. And so thank you for sharing that on Monday with our students, for just jumping in and supporting them and in this two-way street, for making an impact back in the day. It wasn't all that long ago. Back in the day when you were in the MBA, and going forward in what you do. Thank you for giving us a small snippet of that in this podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I enjoy this kind of conversations, and I'm happy that I can support students in sharing my story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Key takeaways. We could highlight and repeat everything that she said, and I'm actually not so sure there's value in that. Just listen to what she said again rather than us saying it all, because all of it was amazing and on point. But in the middle, she said the words, you need to sit with that for a while. Make sure you sit with that. We don't do that enough in so many areas of our life, especially when it's uncomfortable. And whatever that is, whatever you don't want to sit with, is the thing that you need to sit with.
Yeah.
And she talked about a recipe of what made her pivot successful. And while everybody's different, I think there's a common piece of people who make big pivots and do it in one step. She had a few steps in the way, but big steps. Sit with things, really consider them, honor the discomfort, figure out what they want to do with it, and then move forward. And I just thought that was kind of a masterclass in what we often forget to do.
Yeah, that was
How about you, Paul?
yeah, great takeaway. For me, it was interesting. Right at the start of the conversation, she talked about going to events and being really nervous, and then showing up to the events and knowing a whole bunch of people that you can reconnect with. For me, you never know who you might know at a place, and so I think that's really powerful. And at the end of the day, if you don't know anybody, show curiosity. Put yourself out there, and you never know who that person is that you could meet, right? When I think about these episodes of happenstance or chance or meeting people that just you went to a place and you just met somebody, the universe kind of is telling us that maybe that connection was powerful. So that's what I'm walking away with.
Brilliant takeaways. I think there's a lot to chew on from this episode.
Yeah.
Next week, we have students that come on our podcast where this is truly a step of courage. I think actually probably for all of them, but for some, it's a bigger courageous step than others. And that I think is our next week's guest. So we look forward to that, and we'll see you then. Thanks for tuning in to the Career Boosters podcast. We hope you had a blast. Yeah, we know that's corny. Catch you next time, and remember to subscribe wherever you enjoy podcasts.